how are ya? How you be doing? Y'all, please tell me, what are we supposed to do now? What is the meaning of life without the 3-year-long anticipation for the next season of Stranger Things? I'm not sure about you, but I have never felt this much grief over a show ending since in a very long periodically time.
A long periodically time.
I mean, yeah, Stranger Things was only 5 seasons, but this was a 10-year-long story unfolding. And the longer a show goes on, the more attached and parasocial we become with the characters, the more invested we get in the events of their lives. And when it's time for the stories to wrap up, it feels like your arm has been amputated. I know that's a tad bit dramatic and an overreach of trying to express a mild, oh, I'm gonna miss this feeling. But you cannot deny that Stranger Things paved the way for a whole new era of on-demand streaming shows. I think Stranger Things really set the blueprint for how much a show distributed by a streaming service could produce such worldwide success and create a successful franchise. Not that I think commercial success and popular branding is what makes a good show. I mean, I personally think that without Stranger Things, we wouldn't have shows like Bridgerton, Wednesday, or even non-Netflix shows like White Lotus on HBO Max or Only Murders in the Building on Hulu. The all-encompassing point to all that is, Stranger Things has made a colossal impact on digital media and internet culture, thanks to its devoted fan base, talented and charismatic cast, and the dedicated creative vision and writing of the Duffer Brothers. Now, I made a video about a year and a half ago where I reacted to popular season 5 fan theories and gave my 2 cents on whether or not I found it highly plausible or total bogus. And I thought it would be cool to do like a sequel-ish video where I revisit these old theories to see which ones came true and if I was right about any, and if I was right about any of my own theories, or I'm gonna eat my words from calling something that came true as certified doo-doo. Now, I'm not gonna torture you or me by playing the entire old ass video. I'm just gonna show you the clips of me reacting to the theories and upchuck my present day commentary after seeing the Stranger Things season finale. Now, with that being said, if you haven't seen season 5 or you haven't finished it yet, spoiler alert, so watch at your own risk. And I decided to add a bit of a last minute twist to this video to make it a little bit more engaging. For everything that I was right about, I'm gonna take a sip of my warm, comforting cup of peppermint hot chocolate. And for anything that I was wrong about, I'm gonna be taking a sip of Olive Garden light Italian dressing. I should not be allowed to have free will. I mean, I think Will from Stranger Things should be free, but I don't think that my will to make my own decisions should go non-supervised from the divine powers that be. Anyway, we can have a philosophical discussion later. Let's just get it popping up in this shit. The first one is the one that I trapped you into watching this video with. Max is trapped inside Vecna's mind. Well, I said all of our faves. I didn't specifically say Max, but Max is among one of our faves. Because if you watch season 4, you know that it concluded with her being in a coma. She's practically a vegetable at this point. But if you want to be medically correct, she's brain dead. And as much as I want this to be true, I really don't think Max is coming back. I mean, I can see her still being in the hospital. Okay, now, I will say, even though I got a straight up drink salad dressing, I have never been more happier to be wrong. Seeing Max actually come back brought back a spring in my step. Max is the no nonsense, no fucking around lady badass that every ensemble cast needs. And just an aside, her and Holly are the duo I never knew I needed. Even before she got trapped inside Vecna's mind, Max really needed more girls in her life. I mean, I know she had Elle, but I think we see a more visibly softer, protective big sister side come out with Holly through this trauma bond of sorts that they've established from trying to get out of Vecna's mind together.
You better stop!
That we don't see in her friendship with Elle, or just her character in general throughout Stranger Things. And I just love Sadie Sink as an actor, and if you haven't seen The Whale, then change that about your life right now, and watch it on HBO Max if you have a subscription. And I just love her vibe in general. Like, she reminds me of that one therapist friend who empathetically listens and nods along when you tell them about how traffic on the way to work this morning frayed your nerves. Like, if they want to know every single detail of what happened, how it stressed you out, so they can sit with you and be where you're at currently. So my prediction was shit, and I'm glad it was. I mean, I'm not glad about having to drink the Italian dressing, but I'm glad that I was wrong about season 4 not being the end of Max's journey. Okay. Shit! I mean, it doesn't taste bad. It's just like, oh, so many flavors going on all at once. Like the mix of the vinegar and the spices and the garlic. It's not a really pleasant sensation going down your throat and into your stomach. I mean, there are worse things that you can down, but this still just doesn't feel pleasant to drink on its own, to swallow in copious amounts. Okay, now, let's see if I can get at least one gloating privilege of being right with the remaining fan theories, and if I can outnumber the sips of hot chocolate with the amount of sips of salad dressing. Now, this one is basically saying that Karen Wheeler is Vecna's sister when Vecna was a living human and his name was Henry. That little girl from the flashback scene. If I remember correctly, didn't the sister die? I'm calling trash on that one. So yes, I get my first gloating privilege and sip of peppermint hot chocolate, and the trash sentiment was proven correct. I for sure did think that before season 5 came out that Karen Wheeler had some like insider tea about the Creel family. Henry, or something related to the family's presence in Hawkins, and Henry's connection to the supernatural occurrences of Hawkins. Because of that close-up shot where she's standing at the window with Holly, the camera zooms in on her like she's hiding, something that would be useful in the final conquest to destroy Vecna once and for all. Hey, sometimes it's not a bad thing to overinterpret things, because sometimes it might save your ass. Now, before we move on to the next theory, I want to put it out there. I want to make it known. I want to make it tangible in the world. Karen slashing that Demogorgon with a broken wine bottle is the definition of drunk confidence. And it's permanently ingrained in my mind as the image I think of from now on anytime I hear someone use that term. Finally, I get to take my first sip of peppermint hot cocoa for the soul. Oh my god, I needed that in my life after downing that Italian dressing. But I know the Italian dressing is coming back up, so...
I'm gonna brace myself for its return.
Now this one is saying that the Mind Flayer is the main force of all the evil and not Vecna. It reads as, the Mind Flayer is the main villain. The upcoming time jump is spent trying to close the large rips in between dimensions while things are dormant and both sides are recovering. The connection with Russia makes no sense if governments hadn't already been messing with gates. MK Ultra, Russia, Harrison trying to kill L and all of the patients there needs its reasoning. A gate that was open somewhere allowed the Mind Flayer ability to connect with Henry, creating his negative mind against our world. Henry also turns into Mind Flayer particles at the end of this season. The Mind Flayer was the puppet master the entire time, and that Elle and Kali will sacrifice themselves to save our world, closing any gates in the process, closing the potential for any of the lab kids from being around after. Now, I do think the Mind Flayer is the source of all evil doings in this show. Kali and Elle coming together to join forces to destroy the Mind Flayer once and for all. I don't really see that. I think it's gonna be Elle and Will that do that. And I definitely think that one of them is gonna die in the process. So yeah, I think it will be made clear that the Mind Flayer is in fact the big bad, as noted in this theory. All right, first time I gotta do both, because I was half right, half wrong. I mean, technically, yes, Vecna is solely responsible for all the destruction and terror he caused from abusing his powers. But the Mind Flayer is still the original source of all the evil deeds that Henry turned Vecna carried out. Because as we see, Henry was not born evil. He touched a cursed stone filled with Mind Flayer particles, and he became so consumed by the evil it contained. No one around him recognized or showed any amount of concern for his changing behavior and state of withdrawal after the event. And that's what makes him different from Will. Because if you remember from season 2, Will was almost completely taken over by the Mind Flayer, but he had the love and support of Joyce, Jonathan, and his friends to help him remember who he is, and that he was being controlled by a dark force that he had to resist, from letting it turn him into an unstoppable monster like Vecna. And on the other hand, because Henry's parents were so absent-minded and so self-absorbed in trying to preserve this perfect one big happy family image to the world, he didn't get the help he needed when he started showing the first signs of red flag behavior. And that, my friends, concludes today's lesson on nature versus nurture. And on the other hand, the Mind Flayer is inherently evil, but Henry just gave it shape and activated it, so it could work through Henry, eventually Vecna, to destroy the world. So therefore, the Mind Flayer did turn out to be the big bad of Stranger Things. I got that part right, but I was wrong about Kali not returning, and I was almost on point. I was almost on point with Will and Eleven being the ones that take Vecna out for good. But I would say that Eleven and Will weakened Vecna just enough for Joyce to behead him with her axe. So my call was mixed. So I'll just take a bigger sip of the peppermint hot cocoa and just a tiny little sip of the Italian dressing. Thank motherfucking God. I mean, I still have to drink it, just not as much. Oh, holy fuck. Okay. It makes my mouth feel so much better. Before Eddie will return. Okay, like I was saying before, when you're dead, you're dead. Eddie is dead, y'all. These characters are dead, y'all. But I loved Eddie too as much as all of y'all, and I don't want to rule it out either, so let's just see what this theory entails. So as everyone knows, the creatures in the Upside Down are portrayed as characters in Dungeons and Dragons. And the description of these characters in the Upside Down are pretty accurate in the creatures in D&D. Okay, well, I've never played D&D, but I do know that there are parallels between the landscape and environment of the Upside Down and the one of Dungeons and Dragons. Eddie is not dead. The Duffer brothers have said that you cannot die from the bite of a bat. I have this theory that Eddie will become Kos, the vampire. He's another creature of D&D. Okay, thanks for the clarification. Kos is the right-hand man to Vecna. Kos eventually turns on Vecna and defeats him. Kos has a significant weapon, his sword, as well as a shield. I mean, yeah, I love vampires too, but the possibility of that is slim to none in my eyes. And yes, of course, it would be cool if Kos the vampire being Vecna's right. Before I take a lovely sip of my peppermint hot cocoa, as we all saw, if you watch the entirety of season 5, that is, Eddie did not return and he was dead in finality, which is what I completely expected. I mean, not that I didn't want Eddie to come back, of course I did. We all loved Eddie. He was such a vibe in a moment. But the difference between Max's death and Eddie, Chrissy, Billy, Bob, and Barb's deaths was that their bodies were mutilated. Max didn't sustain human injuries. That made her most crucial internal organs stop working. So that's why it always used to drive me crazy when they say, oh, Eddie's coming back. Barb isn't actually dead. Once Vecna is dead, all his victims come back. Like, that's not how that works. Y'all saw with your own eyes their bodies being torn to shreds. I mean, I wish it weren't that way. But life be doing the life thing, and people just don't survive certain catastrophes because we're made of skin and bones. But anyway, I get to call right on that one, and I get to take a big, nice sip of the thing I actually want to sip on. Okay, what we got next? The introduction of Boris from the D&D lore. So this being is a villain of Dungeons and Dragons and is described as a giant dragon-like creature with red glowing scales like magma. It also lines up with Nancy's vision. That's Vecna. She's not seeing a dragon, she's seeing Vecna. And this theory is claiming that Vecna is going to become this dragon named Boris or Boris, I don't know how you pronounce it. Leave me alone. So no, Vecna did not become this dragon-like monster in season 5. And I still don't know how to pronounce this dragon-like creature's name, whether or not it's Boris or Boris. And you still need to leave me alone. Now, I'll take the L for not the theory. I mean, I wouldn't take like Elle from Stranger Things. I'm making so many accidental puns of the characters' names. I would not take 11L, but I will take this L for not the theory because I was right about it not happening. But for thinking that picture in the article was a part of Nancy's vision, y'all give me a break and give me a Kit Kat. It had been 2 years since I had seen season 4 at the time I filmed this. Am I supposed to remember every single detail of the show in that time span? So yes, I take full responsibility for misinterpreting that portion of the article, but everything else about the theory itself is mine to flex about personal correctness. And I don't think that warrants a sip of Italian dressing, so personally I don't think so. Maybe I'll just like, how do I make this not dirty? Lick off the remnants.
Oh, don't do it. Yeah. Oh my God.
Do not make that into anything you shouldn't. Now, this one is saying that all of this, every episode, everything that we've seen so far in Stranger Things is all just actually a dream. That this whole entire show has been a visual presentation of the game that the boys are playing in the very beginning of the series, the D&D game. And that season 5 is going to end with the first scene of the first season when they're sitting in Mike's basement. doubt that's true, so I'm not buying that one. Yay, good call, me. Because if the Duffer Brothers did decide to close the whole series like that, it would have felt like an audience betrayal of some sort. Like a 10-year-long relationship that was all based on false presentations and sustained by gaslighting. Like, what do you mean this whole entire story was just a dream? Are you Nellie from 2010 or something? I mean, that kind of twist is a good twist for standalone movies because it's a one-time event, 1 to 2 hour long story, where there's not enough character growth to develop strong attachments to their humanity. Like with The Wizard of Oz and Dorothy's whole journey to and from Oz being a dream she had while she was knocked out from a concussion. Before a film series or a long-running show like Stranger Things, audiences latch onto those stories and characters more strongly because they get to see how the lives and circumstances of the characters change, and they feel like they're on those journeys with them. And if the plot and the events of Stranger Things had turned out to be a lie, it would feel like, so all this shit was made up. I got scared, sad, and angry at nothing but one big collective lucid dream. I've been played? Where do you think we are? The sandbox? I'm so glad that turned out not to be true, and I get to call right on it, and I'm halfway done with this. The beloved peppermint hot cocoa. This one says time travel plays a significant role in this story. That would be cool. I mean, there already was some time travel back in season 4 when Henry was messing around with the clock, but this theory is saying that if Vecna can do that, if he can do time travel, so can Elle. And Elle has the power to go back and fix this whole mess. I also think that that theory of Elle being Vecna's biological child is still up in the air. But if that does get confirmation to be true in this last season, then yes, she probably can time travel. Okay. So no time travel happened in season 5, but I didn't really give an answer. So I'm gonna overcompensate for it and give my 2 cents on a theory that personally, I'm standing my ground on. And that is the theory of Vecna being Eleven's biological father, or at least blood related to Henry somehow. The biological father theory has been a wild, rampant, highly talked about theory since the conclusion of season 4 3 years ago. And I fall into the category of audience members who buy the theory, or at least a portion of it. Now, before you try to at me with the
In the book, Eleven's biological father is revealed to be a guy named Andrew, who fought in the Vietnam War and died before Eleven was born.
Listen now, that book, Suspicious Minds, was not written by the Duffer Brothers. It was written by an author named Gwenda Bond. So as people who support this fan theory say online, it's not canon to the Duffer Brothers' writing, which in my humblest of opinions warrants it invalid. An absolute fib. If you watch VeggieTales growing up, you know what a fib is. And I mean, it was kind of implied by Collie when she, Elle, and Hopper are in the upside down Hawkins church. Collie tells Elle that none of the other subjects, the Hawkins lab, were as powerful as Henry, despite them all being injected with Henry's blood while still growing in their mother's wombs. But with her, it was different. And the reason why the CIA especially wants her and keeps manhunting her. And after Elle hears this, there's this look of denial and surprise on her face. And she says something along the lines of like, no, that can't be true. I don't remember the exact words, but I think it was left up in the air on purpose. So that way the audience could come to their own conclusion about whether or not it was meant to point toward Elle being conceived by the help of Henry's sperm. I mean, yes, she and Collie call Henry/Vecna brother, but that's just because he was the oldest subject. All the subjects at Hawkins Lab refer to each other as brother and sister. And it's not like Henry was still a child when Elle was conceived. Because in season 5, it's revealed he's around the same age as Joyce and Hopper, and went to Hawkins High with all the adults and parents of the kids on the show. Which, yes, I know, granted, that there is a plot hole in that timeline, but that's a conversation for another day. I'm just trying to say up in this joint that personally, I'm pretty convinced that Elle somehow shares a significant amount of DNA with Henry, whether that's through him being her biological father, cousin, whatever. I do think at the very least she has some Creole family lineage. Because also remember in season 4, she was having an existential crisis there for a bit where she was worried she might be bad or evil. That in retrospect, that at least if you buy into the genetic link theory like I do, was the foreshadowing of the unsettling information she finds out about her roots in the last season. Now, because I didn't give an official answer, does that warrant a drink of Italian dressing or hot cocoa? I mean, I sure as hell am not mixing the two together, if that's what you were waiting for. Maybe just not at all. I'll just say that since I didn't give an answer, I won't take a sip of either of them. Okay, now this is the last theory. Now this last theory is stating that Will created a copy of Hawkins in the Upside Down, and that Vecna was able to see what he did and was so taken aback and was like,
oh, I could have an apprentice.
and that he becomes obsessed with Will, and that this whole time... Sorry, I just have to interrupt you for a second. I actually made that on Canva. I took that still with the caption, "Why you so obsessed with me?" I put Will's face in the place of Regina George's and Vecna's face in the place of Janice Ian's. I'm not lying when I say it's one of my most treasured creations.
She'd be like, why didn't you call me back? And I'd be like, why are you so obsessed with me?
Anyway, back on topic. Obsessed with Will, and that this whole time he's been torturing Will to get him onto his side and join forces with him to take over the world, kind of like he did with 11. I don't remember if it showed in the series Henry, not yet Vecna, creating the Upside Down, that copy of Hawkins. I feel like he did. I want to say he did. I mean, but if that's the case, why would he ask Elle again to stand by his side? Oh, well, maybe he did ask Will and Will turned him down, so he went back to Elle and be like, but more importantly, why does Vecna need a partner? Why does Vecna need a comrade? He's already created so much darkness and destruction on his own. I don't really see why I was gonna say the dude, but he's not a dude anymore, he's a monster. I mean, before he arrived in the Upside Down, Will didn't have any superpowers. Unlike Henry before he became Vecna, he had pre-existing supernatural powers as a human. So no, I think Vecna created the Upside Down Hawkins, not Will. I mean, it seems that Will did get superpowers after being in the Upside Down. But as far as making the whole Hawkins, I highly doubt that. So now that we've gotten through all, okay, I had to look this one up because up until now, I was pretty doggone sure. I was pretty doggone sure that it was Vecna who created the Upside Down. But it says in various places online, Elle was the one who created the Upside Down from accidentally psychically linking up with the Demogorgon. In season 1, where Brenner puts her in the sensory deprivation tank to find Henry after banishing him to Dimension X. And then it was her visceral scream of terror from seeing the Demogorgon that was strong enough to produce a copy of Hawkins. So I was wrong about Vecna being the one that created the Upside Down, but I was also right about it not being Will either. So do we get a taste of both? I guess. I'm just gonna take a small sip of the Italian dressing. It's the last time. It's the last time we do this shit. It's not pleasant. It never will be. Please never ask me to do ASMR. I hate that shit. I hate that shit and it makes me want to rip out my ears. So anyway, I think for the most part, my hunches about season 5 were right because I took more sips of the peppermint hot cocoa than I did of the Italian dressing. So now that Stranger Things is over permanently, the question remains, what show do we get obsessed with now? And anticipate the next season for with thumb twiddling now. I mean, it's not a show, but I do plan to watch Stranger Things: The First Shadow on Netflix, which is the Broadway prequel to the Stranger Things show that depicts Henry's troubled youth in Hawkins. And yeah, I'll let you know how it is because there will be a future video on that, so subscribe if you want to be in the know for when that video comes out. But let me know what shows you all are watching and getting sucked into that's currently filling the Stranger Things excitement void in your life. And I hope this video was a fun and entertaining time for you. But in the case it wasn't, let me show you something that might be. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Threads, which is Instagram's version of X, but I found this post on there recently where user Malls McAdam told everyone that her mom keeps calling Vecna Venmo. I'm just hearing in my mind when I read this, I just hear the voices of my southern aunts, imagining myself having a conversation with them about Stranger Things, and they say something like, and that bad guy Venmo. And there were so many great replies, like Amanda Hodes, Mr. WhatsApp, and Venmo, and Threads themselves telling this user not to correct her mom. And I agree, let's not correct Malls McAdam's mom. Let's just let her keep calling Vecna Venmo. So if you can't take away anything memorable from my video, you can at least take away the best thread written all year by Malls McAdam. Thank you to all of you who watched this video all the way through. Make sure you press that like button for more videos like this in the future. And if you and I are a high vibe match, then why don't you make yourself a part of this channel's emotional support coven? And it's not like I'm gatekeeping it or anything. All you have to do is just take your dominant finger and press the subscribe button like this. Bing! And if you want to take your loyalty to the highest tier, turn on those notifications so you have a better chance of getting the first few flex with every new upload. Stay cool, stay fresh, and I'll see you next time. Bye!